and welcome to another session of Q&A with Qlik webinar series. We're excited to have y'all all here today. And today's topic we will be covering is Qlik Sense Migration to Qlik Cloud. And we hope that this will help new users to SaaS or users that are migrating, wanting to learn some tricks and tips and resources on the subject. This is a live question and answer. So initially, we want you to, and especially want you to put your questions within the Q&A panel at the bottom, so we will be able to answer those questions and we'll make sure to be able to get to them. Just a few parameters to go over. We cannot see and hear you, but you can see and hear us. That's why it's essential for you to put those questions in the Q&A panel. And if you have some resources or tips that you would like to share with your fellow audience members, you can also add that into the chat. Also, we ask you to keep your questions relevant to this topic, as our experts cannot go over any support cases at this time. And also, go ahead and check out using this QR code for our next or upcoming future sessions for Q&A with Qlik. Now, back to why we're here. We are covering the topic once again, Qlik Sense to Migration to Qlik Cloud. I'm Emmanuel Herndon, and I am a digital customer success specialist and new to the Q&A live session. My role here is to help users, help customers, from trial to renewals, anywhere I can to enhance their customer journey. And my focus right now is webinars and videos and those resources for our customers. I am not doing this alone. My colleague, Troy, is helping me co-host this. Troy, will you say hello?
Hi, everybody. I'm Troy, and co-hosting with Manny. And I largely work with webinars and helpful videos like this one. And now to turn it over to our panelists for today, our experts that have joined us. Do you want to introduce yourself, Diksha?
Hey, everyone. I'm Diksha. I'm a technical learning consultant with Qlik, and I'm really happy to be here to share some learning resources with everyone.
How about you, Daniele?
Hi, everyone. This is Daniele. I work in the Swedish office. I've been with Qlik for 9 years. I'm a senior engineer, and I'm also supervising the support team that takes care of SaaS cases.
Vinay?
Hey guys, my name is Vinay, and I've been with Qlik for over 3.5 years now, and I primarily support our SaaS support cases. Thank you.
And Stefan?
Yep. Hello, I'm Stefan. I've been with Qlik for 14 years. I'm a senior enterprise architect in pre-sales, so I support POCs in the field with our sales force.
Great. So we have an excellent panel today. And questions have already started coming in, but I'm going to kick it off with the first one. Where can we learn more about using apps in Qlik Cloud? Diksha, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, so maybe I'll just share my screen and show some of the locations that you can find resources. Let me share, give me a minute.
Sure.
Okay, let me know when you can see my screen.
Yep, we see it.
Okay, great. So let me start off with the learning.qlik.com, which is also known as the Qlik Continuous Classroom website. If you go into this website, you'll find a lot of resources are available here for free. The easiest way to go look for any specific topic that you want to have help with, you can go to the How Do I, and you'll find a number of videos in here. Now, there are options here for you to be able to search. There's also filters available for you to filter by SaaS or any other product that you might be looking for. So I'm just going to show you that. If you look at Qlik Sense SaaS, you will be able to find resources related to apps and spaces and tables. There's a number of free content here that you can go look at. Just look for the tag on the top right-hand side and you'll be able to see free. This is all the content that you can consume without a subscription. You will also be able to find a lot of information on the help. So if you go to help.qlik.com, and you go into documentation, you will be able to find everything you need under client managed, data analytics, or Qlik Cloud. Since we are talking about Qlik Cloud today, I'm just going to show you this page where you will be able to see all information about, maybe analyzing data or apps or everything you need. Now, what's most important here is if you're looking to migrate your apps or users or streams, you will be able to find a lot of helpful information under the Migration Center. This is where we have collated a lot of resources, step-by-step instructions, and there are links to additional videos that you can find in here as well. Let me just start off with a simple topic of planning your migration, which will take you into the Migration Center. And on the left-hand side, you have a whole lot of resources in here. So if you click on any one of these topics, for example, setting up the Qlik Cloud migration tools, which is nothing but a set of tools available to you to make your migration process a lot more easier. These scripts have been created so that you can just use them to move your objects from client managed into Qlik Cloud. And the whole process has been explained here with the help of resources. You have links. There are links available to videos. There are links available to additional step-by-step instructions. And this page should help you a lot with migrating items from your client managed into Qlik Cloud. Finally, I want to take you back to the learning.qlik.com. And I would just like to show you under the continuous classroom, we have a specific learning plan which says migrating to Qlik Cloud. This learning plan contains, again, similar step-by-step instructions to be able to migrate your objects from client managed into Qlik Cloud, and you can go through them in a step-by-step process. Now, this is a learning plan that's a work in progress, so eventually you will see that there'll be more information, not just for Qlik Sense, but also for QlikView in the future. And I hope that helps.
Hey, the next question that came in, what is the time frame to allow subscriptions to email an Excel formatted attachment? Who wants to take that one?
Yeah, I don't know if we have an answer for that particularly right now. I haven't seen anything specific on that in the roadmap. I don't know if anyone else has, but since we don't have a product manager representative right here, so I would want to refrain from answering that, but we can try and figure it out and get back to an answer later, I'd say.
We know for sure that it's something in the plan, so it's coming, but we cannot commit to any date at the moment.
Okay, thank you for that. We have a next question coming to the panelists. When will Qlik be able to support the movement of bookmarks, personal sheets, and community sheets to the cloud when doing a migration?
Yeah, I don't know, Danielle, if you have something to add on that one. I would say the same as I said before. I don't have any particular insight to that, and if it is indeed a roadmap item or not.
I'm not sure there's anything about bookmarks. I haven't seen anything about bookmarks. There are ways of migrating community, at least some service sheets using the migration tool. If you look at if you go to the Migration Center, migrating apps, you will see that self-service sheets are also migrated with the tool. So.
Yeah, I guess the difference there, and correct me if I'm wrong, I guess the difference is that when you do multi-cloud promotion of apps, you don't get private sheets or community sheets, but when you use the migration tools, straight off you do, or you have the option to do, right? That's how I understood it, at least.
Yeah.
Great, thanks. Okay, the next question has to do with QVDs and QVFs. If they're encrypted on-prem, will there be an issue migrating those to SaaS? I'm assuming we're talking about like section access or just encryption, not sure, but does anybody know about that level?
I don't know the details about that. I mean, it's not clear what you mean by encrypted, because we encrypt the stuff, and so we use the Qlik's keys for encrypting. So bringing it to the cloud, it shouldn't be a problem. In the cloud, you can encrypt using with your own keys, and then it would be impossible to get the data outside if you don't have those keys. But specifically, normal QVDs can be brought up to the cloud without any kind of problems.
Yeah, I mean, just to elaborate a bit what Daniel said, I mean, it depends on what kind of encryption we're talking about. Like every communication between both the migration tools and a multi-cloud environment where you promote from on-prem to Qlik Cloud, all that information is being encrypted with TLS in transit, meaning that it's encrypted when it actually gets moved into the cloud. But if you have an operating system level encryption, as long as you can utilize the assets in the Qlik Sense Enterprise on client managed on-prem, they will be able to move into SaaS, like, because that encryption will just be taken care of automatically on the OS level. But if you have specific encryption that needs to decrypt before you can actually access those assets, you can't move those things into the cloud unless you actually specifically decrypt them. But yeah, I see very few like corner cases when that happens. So.
Okay, thank you for that. I see a lot of questions are coming in, so we're gonna move as quickly as possible and try to answer as many as possible. The next question is there a way to ensure the named ownership of all sheets, included private sheets, is preserved when migrating to on-prem to the cloud, from on-prem to the cloud?
Not at the moment. At the moment, this is not possible. So if a private sheet is owned by a specific person, then it will not, settings will not be maintained when moving to the cloud. You will be able to move the sheet, but then it will become accessible to anyone.
Thank you for that. All right. The next question, what is the best way to move apps from on-prem to the cloud? I guess kind of from a high level, if people haven't gone through those learning modules yet. Can anyone address what that process looks like?
So I can answer that one. There is sometimes a little bit of misunderstanding about using hybrid deployments in Qlik Sense Enterprise. So you can deploy apps from Qlik Sense Enterprise to the cloud, but in that case, it's not a migration. It's just you basically make the apps available on the cloud for consumption. The actual migration can be done in several ways. We have, as we've said already a few times, we have made up sets of scripts that help with the migration, and that allows, for instance, automatically migrating sheets and everything. But you can also just simply upload the app to the hub, and that's also fine.
Okay, thank you. The next question is there any way to bulk download script execution and user script logs related to their Qlik Cloud tenants for ingestion and analytics in custom dashboards?
Yeah, bulk download of session logs.
So
I guess the API for Qlik Cloud is pretty extensive. So I guess that you would gain access to the audit logs in Qlik Cloud, which is closest to session logs, if anything. So I would, without actually looking if that is a public API right now, I would say yes. But I won't swear on the granularity at this point. Sorry.
I mean, you can only look at the logs at the app level, not at the sheet level, or like which visualization has been opened or accessed by a particular user. We can only see in the logs like which user has opened which app or accessed the app, but not at the sheet level at this time.
And just to make it clear, if you feel that you would like a feature, just don't hesitate to log an idea on ideation, because our current ideation portal is monitored constantly by our product team. And there is our product managers could reply you right away if something is on the timeline, or they could gather information. And if other users are also looking into something, we definitely can consider it including it in the product. Lots of implementations that we've done in the product came from the ideation page. So whenever you feel something is needed, go ahead and publish an idea there. There's really lots of action on those pages from our internal Qlik dev team and product team.
Thanks for that, Daniela. Okay, so the next question, what are security differences between Sense behind a company firewall and SaaS? Are there zero trust solutions for company external users to only see certain things in the SaaS environment? Section access might be related to that one. And if one uses multiple tenants to solve this, what is the cost and effort of maintaining multiple tenants in SaaS? So kind of multiple parts of that question. Let's focus on the first one, the security differences between Sense and SaaS.
So when it comes to security, we have several important certifications. Our product is also certified for government use. So we are quite from the US, and also we have certifications from the European side. We have a specific page that I can share in the chat. Just a second, so that everybody can see that. And, oh, I don't know, is there a way to, okay, type an answer? I guess I can do it here. And you can get all the information about security there. When it comes to allowing, for instance, external users and granting only certain access, that can be achieved with different levels of solutions. Section access is definitely something that can be used. You can integrate it with your own IDP, for instance, that allows access to external users only to specific spaces or specific apps. And you can integrate the two things together, definitely. Section access is very important when it comes to that.
Yeah, I'd want to add to that if we talk about the first part of that question, the difference between Sense on-prem or client managed and SaaS is the way that we handle authorization and authentication is that the SaaS handles that by an identity provider need to be brought by the customer, and that needs to be an OIDC compliant one, which is, covers quite a lot, which, identity providers and mechanisms out there in the field. And whereas by doing that, you basically, you have the flexibility of actually working with the authorization mechanisms in your own directory. And that will then be able to be easily translated into SaaS. So I'd say it's not as granular as you would be used to with a lot of security rules, but it's easier to maintain in SaaS. And that will transfer through to providing access to different users, either on a raw data level with section access, or just asset level, basically access to spaces or apps. And yeah, it's really hard to say the cost and effort in maintaining multiple tenants, but you can have multiple tenants, and if you are interested in running a model like that, you should engage with your local sales rep, and they can square you out on exactly what it means to do that. There's tooling around that as well.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, when is NPrinting going to be able on SaaS? And I was going to answer that. We did do a session for reporting services, and I would say recommend going to go see that recording that did answer that question. So I would recommend that.
Yeah, I'll just share my screen so people can find that. So this is on Qlik Community. If you go to, gosh, where are we now? Events, Q&A with Qlik. You'll find this where you can find all of our upcoming events and previous events. And here's where you can find the recording of last month's session, which addresses that exact topic, all the capabilities of Qlik Cloud reporting. And it's pretty much everything, almost everything you can do in NPrinting, you can do in cloud reporting. It's just not exactly a migration. It's sometimes you have to map that out. But the product manager and one of our premier experts, Johnny Poole, was on that. So give that recording a listen to learn more. All right, the next question is, bring your own key implemented? I'm not quite, I understand that one. Does anyone else understand that question?
Yeah, it is. I mean, customers can start using the bring your own key. It's a complex process. It's not something that can be done by anyone, but it's definitely something that can be done. The only so you need someone with expertise on the matter. You might want to engage our professional services because we've been working a lot with those things. It's important to know that if you already have a tenant with applications and anything on that, you won't be able to add to enable bring your own keys on that one, because then you won't be able to see your current application. So you will need to talk with your account manager and have a discussion about how to best approach it. If to create a new tenant, have that one with bring your own keys and then start migrating stuff, or getting assistance with emptying the tenant and then filling it up again. Because as I said, the moment you encrypt stuff, you add the encryption keys, you wouldn't be able to access the old apps that are already encrypted. So if you want to do that, please reach out to your account manager, and there will be solutions for that. So,
okay, thank you. This next question is a two-part question. What are the best practices for migrating detailed security concepts of Qlik Sense on Windows to the cloud? Is there a roadmap to extend the current option in terms of security?
I know, Stefan, you talked about that a little bit. Did you want to try and elaborate?
Yeah, I did. I mean, there is no, that usually doesn't work like that. I mean, if you have a directory already, like an active directory one way or another, you can, if you can find a way to to hook that up to, if that is OIDC compliant, like for example, if you're using Azure AD or something like that, that will apply the same in SaaS as it does in your current environment. I mean, the way that you will implement, like enforce those ACLs will be different. But I mean, if you have an existing directory that is compliant with OIDC, that's going to work the same way. If you don't, there will be a way for you, a manual way that you will need to translate that into whatever authentication methods that you choose to use in SaaS.
Great. Thanks. Okay, the next question. The migration topic on the continuous classroom, is that available only to users with a subscription?
No, all of that is free. So if you are looking at the learning plan on the continuous classroom, that's free. If you're looking at any other courses related to Qlik Cloud, some of them are free and some of them are not. So like I said, when you do your search, take a look at the tag. There's a free tag at the top of every course. But as far as migration is concerned, the content that we have is all free for everyone to use.
Okay, thank you. These are some great questions. All right, the next question. Do you recommend using data transfer of Qlik Data Gateway when migrating apps to Qlik Sense SaaS?
I'm guessing they mean data transfer or Qlik Data Gateway.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, probably.
Daniel, you were about to say something,
so.
I guess.
Yeah, I mean, just want to explain the differences between the two tools. Qlik Data Transfer was the first tool that we made available for transferring stuff directly from basically a local computer to the cloud. It was not meant to be a really enterprise solution. It was more like a developer that wanted to push stuff to the cloud. So it was a little bit raw in the process, but it still has some functionalities that we don't have in Data Gateway. Data Gateway is the enterprise solution. It's gonna get more and more functionalities, while Qlik Data Transfer at the moment, we don't intend to extend it anymore. It's just there and it can be used. There are gonna be security patches and more, but if Data Gateway can do the things that you need to do, then the recommendation is to use Data Gateway. If for some reason the functionality is still not available there because you will need to use data transfer, like for monitoring folders, and then in that case you will need to use Qlik Data Transfer, or you can use both for the time being until Qlik Data Gateway becomes more complete and you'll be able to do everything through that one.
Yeah. Can I just, again, sorry, Danielle, this is not, I know that you know this, but I want to make a clarification because I've seen a lot of confusion about this in the field. Like data gateways today, there are two of them. There's the data movement gateway and then there's the direct access gateway. And I want to be clear on the fact, or we should be clear on the fact that none of those actually move apps. They don't promote apps or move apps or migrate apps. You know, data movement is basically to in a flexible way move data that is being locked on-prem into either a cloud data warehouse or into Qlik Cloud as QVD files. And the direct access is basically to allow SaaS apps to fetch data from on-premise sources in a kind of a natively reload way. So we should be clear that that is what the gateway is doing currently. So for migration, Data Gateway is not the silver bullets.
Thanks for clarifying that. It can be confusing. The next question, is there a recommended framework or to-do list for a successful migration? And I don't know if we want to revisit the Migration Center for that, perhaps?
I think it's the best thing because the Migration Center contains all the information that is needed. So
I'll just show that one more time. So that's, you can Google, find this if you Google it, Migration Center, Qlik, and it takes you to this page and click
maybe
help.
If you can put the link in the chat, that might help as well, Troy.
That's a great idea, thank you. Yeah, so I'll post this link in the chat and I'll also make it available with the recording of this once we post the recording on Qlik Community. Here we go. Everybody should be able to see that now. And yeah, this has a lot of really great documentation on everything you need to do and the steps and it breaks it down in different parts. Manny, you want to take the next one?
Oh, yes. This is another NPrinting question, and I will say, how can the print function be integrated to NPrinting? And I would say, Troy showed before the session on cloud reporting, and I would say recommend going to look at that. You can find it in community under. He's going to show us.
Yeah, and I'll just post that link as well.
But go to community, blog and events, and then you would have expert-led events, and then you can go down and you can find past recordings, and then go there. You will see making the move to Qlik Cloud reporting, and we did talk about that there.
Yeah. Great. All right, next question. Is it possible to update an app in managed space via API so we can maintain measures across apps? We can do this in on-prem version, but I haven't found a way to do it in the cloud yet. So updating an app in a managed space via API. Anybody got any ideas on that one?
So managed spaces are basically meant only for consumption and for doing, for showing to end users apps that have been developed somewhere else. What do you mean by update? If you mean reload the app, it should be possible to do it via API call, but to change anything inside it, that shouldn't be the way. You should always change the source app and then publish the changes to the managed app, if I understood the questions correctly.
That's how I interpret it. So, good answer.
I'll add again, sorry, it's me adding again. I'll just add one thing. Yeah, I mean, Daniel is 100% correct. I would point out, like, look into application automation for, workflows like this instead of using the APIs. Maybe, APIs has a use case for sure. But if you want to do a low code option, look into Qlik application automation where you can actually do stuff like this as well.
Okay, next question. The reassignment of sheets is a big issue. Can you import sheets by pulling the binary? Or you can import sheets by pulling the binary, but then you cannot reassign those to users. The reassignment of sheets. Anybody want to address that one?
Yeah, I mean, we said it already before. The moment you bring sheets from a private app to the cloud, and from an on-premise app to the cloud, there is no way to making them private again. So that is a current limitation. Feel free to log an idea so that our product management knows about. There might be already one. If there is one, just add a comment or like it and push for that, because product management want to hear those kind of information, those kind of questions, those kind of requests. And the more we get, the more we know what people want.
That's great. The next question is about QlikView, which isn't quite on topic, but I'll read it. How would you approach migrating from QlikView to Qlik Sense SaaS? Most of the documentation I find all relates to Qlik CM and Qlik SaaS, or Client Manage and Qlik SaaS, or QlikView to Qlik Client Manage. I would like to point out that there was a Techspert talk, another webinar that Qlik does, on migrating QlikView apps to Qlik Cloud. We addressed this topic specifically. I'll share that and post the link for you to review. But that was, again, Johnny Poole talking about that topic. So here's something you can review and share, but he dives into that and even demos some tools that make that process a lot easier. So there's a good resource for you if you're focused on QlikView.
I can mention very quickly that you are able to publish app from the publisher to Qlik Cloud for consumption only. So once it's in the cloud, you're not going to be able to do anything. It's like having a source document in the publisher and then published to the access point. So users will be able to see the apps, consume them, but not editing the script or anything. If you want to do a migration, then you will need to do an actual migration to a Qlik Sense app, and we have tools for doing that. At least some things that can be done easily. Then, of course, some things will need to be done manually, but there's definitely some tools. So it's basically migrate from QlikView to Qlik Sense and then move the app to the cloud. But the webinar that we had, the tech experts one, is pretty good. So I recommend watching it.
Yeah, that's good you point out that capability. You can publish QlikView apps to Qlik Sense Hub in the cloud. Manny, do you want to take the next one?
Yes. Here's a question. How to use functionalities like comments, alerts, pins on homepage, etc., with extension objects like Vizlib. I hope I pronounced that correct. I don't know if this is
there are some limitations when it comes to what you can actually do with objects that are, built with extensions. I don't know, Daniel, if you have particular insight into Vizlib in that sense.
I mean, as Qlik Support, we don't support third-party tools, so the recommendation is always go to the vendor of the app and see what they say. Of course,
capabilities-wise, like comments, alerting, these are things that Qlik Cloud can do without having an extension. I just want to point out.
Yep, yeah. That's correct.
So
there might be differences. Yeah, there might be differences with extensions, or there are differences. I can't say for Vizlib specifically, but I'm guessing that there are, and I don't know of any changes on that area. We can look it up.
Yeah, I remember that they are a Qlik partner, and some of their extensions.
Yeah, they have a very it's a very nice set of extensions. They're very powerful. Yeah. So yeah.
I think some of those capabilities have been already adopted into the product.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, next question. Sometimes our customers need to distribute app from on-prem to SaaS. The prerequisites to do that is the signed license key on the same or both environments. But in my case, the environment, the signed license key is not the same as it is on my on-prem with the signed license key with multi-cloud enabled. Is this the case? Can I distribute apps to SaaS?
Yes.
You can.
The licenses doesn't have to be the same. It is just that the license should be a multi-cloud license in the on-premise, and the SaaS license can be a different one. You should be able to set up the multi-cloud license and then use the distribution documentation we have, and then distribute the app from the on-premise to the cloud.
Yeah, they need to have multi-cloud tagging on both of the licenses, though, I think.
The main issue with that is that then you will end up using two licenses for the same user. So if you have the same user that accesses both environments, they will consume one analyzer license on one license key, and they're gonna use another license on the other key. So you'll end up at the moment, at least, where we have the solution with using this kind of access for users. Then you'll end up in that scenario. When you have the same signed license key and you synchronize users via the same IDP, then the same user accessing apps in both environments will only consume one license.
Okay, yep. Thank you.
Talk to your sales rep.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Is there a plan to allow exporting storyboards to PDFs in SaaS as you can do in Enterprise?
I remember that question was actually addressed in that making the move to Qlik Cloud reporting Q&A session we had last month. I was just trying to skim through the transcript to see what our experts on that said. So I don't remember exactly, but I definitely recommend checking out that recording, because I know that it was addressed, and that's bit more of a roadmap product manager question.
And again, if you're wondering about something if it's in the roadmap, log an idea on the ideation page and product manage. If product management knows that something is in the roadmap, they will answer basically right away saying this is in the roadmap. So
that's a great tip.
Don't hesitate to do that.
The next question, I wonder about QVD PATH, including folders and subfolders. Do you have a file notation or AI utility or documentation to transform the folder, subfolder path to a QVD on Qlik Cloud storage?
There's no tooling that I know of, and for QCS storage, like native storage in QCS, for data files storage, there's no folder support at this time. I know that there's talk about that, but you can simulate folders by naming like actually naming the files as paths, but which I wouldn't recommend. But I would say stay tuned, for changes this year, and again, keep an eye on the ideation pages for stuff like that. But no, there's no final tooling for that because of the fact that we don't have folder support today in QCS data files.
Okay, thank you. Next question, will Qlik Cloud support access to on-prem files, Microsoft SQL database API calls?
I mean, the answer is yes. The Qlik Data Direct Access Gateway does that today, basically. So, I mean, that's one way of actually directly accessing the data in a database like that from SaaS. And I'm not going to go into detail exactly how it works. There are assets that explains that. But yeah, that's possible via two ways. Either you promote the data from on-prem up to QCS or a data warehouse, or you reach in with the direct access gateway. So the answer is yes.
And you can also, of course, open the firewall and not the connection to your database, whatever. So you can also, we have instructions on what to open in firewalls. We recommend using modern firewalls that allow opening host names and not just IP addresses, because the IP addresses change, but you can definitely connect to local sources directly from Qlik Cloud if you open the firewall. So.
All right, we got a lot of questions coming in. I don't know if we'll have time to get to them all, but we'll keep going. What actually happens when you run the provided bat file script after generating the CSV files? Does the app, which has been selected for migration, go to the personal space or managed space or both? Does anybody want to address that? I'm pretty sure it goes to your personal space when you initially do a migration. But,
yeah, so that's what happens when you migrate it. It does not go to a managed space. It cannot do that. It will go into the personal space of the owner of the app.
Okay, thank you. The next question: on-prem, when a professional user was leaving the company, I was using the QMC App Objects section to give myself ownership for their sheets, to revise them and assign them the useful ones to the other colleagues. How can I do that in SaaS?
So managing apps after someone leaves. I'm pretty sure that's possible in the QMC. Does anyone with more experience want to address that one?
I'm thinking. Sorry.
No problem.
So. I know that it's something that it's something that we had discussions about before, migrating content from one user to the other. I think it's something that has been discussed from being in the timeline, but in the roadmap, I don't know the latest details about that, but there was some discussion about migrating content from one user to another. So again, please log an idea, and since we don't have the answer right now, and then someone will get back to you about that.
All right, next question's kind of an easy one. Will Qlik Cloud support section access?
It does already, yes.
Nice and easy. All right, next question. Client managed encryption is about, and they put in a link. Oh, I think you're just trying to help us out here. Client managed encryption, and there's a link here that was posted to us directly from the Qlik help site documentation. Server security data encryption. Okay.
Okay, next question. If there is a data governance needed in our business, then example, data sovereignty rules preventing data being moved, processed outside of our region, can we still migrate to the cloud, to Qlik Cloud?
So the tenants are in a specific region. So if you have a US tenant, it's going to be a US based server. If it's a EU, it's going to be a European based server. If you're afraid that users are going to download stuff and put it somewhere else, then you will need to restrict users from doing such kind of actions, like using section access from or preventing downloads and those kind of things. You will need, there are definitely restrictions. But the moment a user is able to download an app, for instance, or download the data, there is no way that we can stop it from taking it anywhere else. So what we recommend in that case is use section access and have audits on your users about what they're doing.
Great. Next question. For third-party extensions, we're currently able to test them in new versions in our enterprise test environment before we upgrade. In cloud, is it possible an extension could unexpectedly break since the upgrades happen automatically? Anyone want to address that one when it comes to third-party extensions? I wasn't really aware of any third-party extensions that apply to Qlik Cloud.
I mean, you can apply extensions to Qlik Cloud, but updating automatically, I'm not aware of that. You will need to upload the new version of the extension.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's correct. I mean, you can't expect a full feature parity on behavior. Of extensions between client managed and SaaS today. So, you are going to have to do that validation in one tenant or another in SaaS.
Okay, thank you. Next question. We have some specific use case on premise on Qlik NPrinting. We generate multiple broadcasts on Excel. What can be a good solution to move it on to Qlik Cloud? They say they already have Qlik automation and look a bit Qlik Enterprise reporting. Not really understanding that question, but maybe y'all understand it.
So they're generating multiple broadcasts on Excel.
I mean, as we said, we don't have currently feature parity between NPrinting and Qlik Cloud. There are things that we have on Qlik Cloud that we don't have on NPrinting, and vice versa. The plan is to add more and more of the features of NPrinting to the cloud, but we'll never know. We don't know at the moment if we have complete full parity. What you can do if you have questions about it's difficult to answer questions of this kind in this forum. It's difficult to know without knowing what you're doing and how you're doing it. What we recommend when you have questions about how to do stuff, post on the community, put as many details as possible. And on the Qlik community, we have Qlik employees that's in different kind of fields that look at the community. And we also have a large user base of customers that have been doing the same things you might need to be doing right now. They've been doing it in the past, so they have experience and they're willing to share how to do things. So the community is a great place whenever you don't know what's the best way to approach something. Just post on the community and you'll get help.
That's an excellent tip, Daniela. But I think the person was on the right track, because I believe I remember seeing some Qlik automation for exporting things to Excel. So
yeah, they're on the right track. I mean, I would say, stay on the track that you're on, explore the features of Qlik application automation, which basically contains our reporting capabilities for Qlik Cloud today. So yeah, just keep at it and keep an eye on the community.
All right, next question. I'm head of a customer success at a reseller in Brazil, and I'm at the forefront of initiatives to engage customers for SaaS. Recent questions and challenges. Most customers use integration with IDP, mainly Azure AD, but since Microsoft has disabled simple authentication, some automation and reporting functions do not work due to the need for multiple or multi-factor authentication, right? Is there a roadmap for this, for multi-factor authentication? I don't know who wants to address that one.
So we've had several discussions about SMTP in particular, so sending things via email, via Microsoft. And the decision that was taken by product management is that since Microsoft discouraged using their SMTP for mass mailing, we decided not to implement advanced authentication for those solutions. The reason is that we don't want Qlik and Qlik's, one of the reasons is that we don't want Qlik and Qlik IP addresses being marked as spammer, because maybe people generate thousands of reports, and so Microsoft could say you're not allowed to do that because it's forbidden by our policies. So what we recommend in this case is to use a third-party tool that is specifically purpose for mass mailing. So there are several on several different competitors. You can just check about the one that works for you. For testing purposes, we recommend using SendGrid because they have a free tier where they can be used for a certain amount of emails that can be sent daily. I don't remember the details about that. But if you have any other third-party tool that you would like to use, feel free to use that. We are discussing about implementing advanced authentication for those solutions, but at the moment there is no plan of doing it for Microsoft for the reasons that we described. Microsoft in their policies discourage using their SMTP servers for mass mailing.
Okay, thank you. I think this question has been answered before, but we just go over it one more time. Is there a tool recommended for migration, if any?
Victor, do you want to address that one more time?
Yeah, sorry, the screen gets stuck occasionally. Yep, so if you go into the Help Migration Center. You can download the migration tools there. That has a lot of help for you to migrate your apps and users and spaces, streams to spaces. So definitely try and use that.
Great, and that's here, and we posted that link, and we'll post it along with the recording. We're running a little on time, so we'll see how many last-minute questions we can get to. Users need to duplicate public sheets, private sheets made public, to their private sheets again after migrating apps to cloud. Is this the easiest way to do that? Or what's a better way to do that, I guess? I got a little confused in that question. So does anyone want to address that?
Public sheets, private sheets made public to cloud to have their private sheets again. Yeah, I mean, as we said previously, when you migrate an application from client managed to the cloud, you will need to make the sheets public. So, and there is no way of remaking them private. So the solution in this case, if they want to keep them private and make changes to that, is to duplicate them and work on them as a duplicate. At the moment, there is no way of reassigning public stuff to users.
I kind of feel like we're getting close to the end here. So I just want to let everybody know that our next session will be March 7th. That's going to be new to Qlik Cloud. And we had lots of great questions today. Thank you everybody for coming and sending in your questions. Hope we were able to address as many of them as we could. We'll see if we can take a few more offline and post those answers with the recording. Here is a QR code to a survey about today's session. We hope you enjoyed it, and we hope you sign up to attend sessions in the future. We'll also be having a second session in March. And thank you very much, everybody, for your participation today. We really appreciate it. And thank you to our excellent panelists. We always appreciate getting experts like y'all to join us. So we'll see how many of these we can address in written form and offline. And thank you all for attending. Have a great rest of your day.